Yeah, hi. What are we doing today? It's the third BoxFest festival in Box's 25th birthday year. We're bringing some of the new technologies from NAB over to share with our customers in London. A little bit of information on all the new work from Telestream, what's going on in their roadmap, and getting everybody together to share information with their peers, have a few drinks, and educate. Thank you for coming. Welcome to BoxFest. This is our third event like this, where we're hoping to bring a few things to you that came out during NAB. NAB used to be very well attended from the UK, but we're finding over the last few years it's getting harder and harder for people to justify going to Las Vegas, especially after justifying going to Amsterdam. I think anybody from outside our industry, when you tell them where we go for our trade shows, doesn't actually believe that you do anything at those dens of iniquity, but them's the breaks. So what we started to do was bring a few of the NAB new technologies over, which is where we're going to head this afternoon. And this morning, an update for mostly the Telestream customers and people interested in the Vantage and transcoding work that we're doing, to give you an update on the more detailed parts of that product.
What I'm going to try and do is to give you a flavour of the new stuff that we're working on, and try and give you some ideas as to the potential use cases for us over here. Most of you are aware of that we've had, this is now our third generation Lightspeed. The current model is the K20, which is still available, but the K80 comes in at a slightly higher performance, as you would expect, because the technology is moving on quite quickly, so we are keeping a pace as well. And in some cases you can see speeds 100% faster over the K20. One of the main reasons we came up with the K80 is to run a new product that we've got called Tempo. Now, Tempo was kind of the flagship product that we talked about at NAB, and it was highly focused at the US market. It's a time adjustment software. So it gives customers the ability to either lengthen content or shorten content, up to plus minus 10% is kind of the threshold that we're looking at. Now, as you could probably imagine, in the US, where regulation is a little less stringent than us over here in Europe, if you could shrink a program by 30 seconds, you can stick another 30-second spot in. And the maths is fairly easy. You can calculate the return on investment on that very, very quickly. Now, the US is slightly less regulated than we are, so we have our 12 minutes per hour and very, very much regulated, shall we say. So any kind of deviation from that would be difficult. But the other use cases for this would be to take American content that's supposedly for a half-hour slot, but it's actually only 22 minutes long. So instead of filling up with interstitials, breakers, bumps, and all that kind of stuff, you can actually stretch the program a little bit. So the screen looks very familiar. The nice thing about this is this section here, you can go in and say, right, here's my source material. Do not do any time shrinkage or acceleration on this section, which could be because it's artistically important, or it could be because it's a commercial break, and you're not allowed to actually shrink those commercial breaks. But that's all set up in here. And then in a very familiar workflow style, you just add it as a box into your normal Vantage workflow. When is it available? Well, it's going to be available in the next couple of weeks. It's relying on the next update pack for Vantage to run. As I said earlier, the server itself is actually shipping as of last week. Is it available as just software? No, it does need a K80. The obsession of monetizing content and how to make more money out of selling more ads. Okay, this is kind of the main drive for the US at the moment, is how to make more money out of the content that you've already got. So dynamic ad insertion is kind of where we've been going with this. And although this has been going on for quite a while, this update here is actually quite specifically at the moment based on the CableLabs and Comcast standards in the US. The reason I'm telling you this is it's giving you an insight as to what's happening in the US, what manufacturers like us are having to do to address the market, and this is an extension of Post-Producer, which some of you know about, some of you don't. So the idea here, of course, and video on demand is an area that's booming not just in the US but over here as well, or in fact the whole world. But the ability to actually send targeted ads into a new video on demand package rather than either having to chop them out or sending commercials that are out of date or not relevant, etc., etc. So this is opening up new revenue streams for broadcasters in the US. There has to be some compliance with, as I said, with the Comcast format is very specific. So we have the VOD producer part of this is to actually create the asset that's accepted by Comcast. So in many ways, it's very similar to a sort of a DPP type workflow, where an asset has to be called in such and such a way with the slates, clocks, and things, all in a precise order, and this works very similar. So again, we go in here and the very familiar screen that we know and love within Vantage, and you can go in here and you can insert the points where you want the adverts to appear. Okay, so you can go through the timeline, mark in and out on the video where you want these video on demand ads to appear. And again, just to show you the type of ecosystem that we're talking about, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, just want to give you an idea of the types of companies that we've had to integrate with. This one's very important for us, Canoe Ventures, Black Arrow, which I think is available, it's over here as well. And again, this is part of why we're here today, is to kind of get some feedback from you guys, because this is what we're doing in the US. It'd be very interesting to hear what, your reaction to this sort of stuff. And Nielsen, of course, which is, their equivalent of getting ads to get invoiced and therefore paid. So as you can see over here, it's just about putting markers in. And the next slide again, apologies, I'm not going to go into detail, but it'll just show you how similar this is to a sort of a DPP workflow, where we insert markers, we tell the product what to do, and it will go and build this automatically for you within Vantage. This is a brief section, so don't worry. Just to let you know where we are in terms of UHD or 4K support currently, and what's coming down the track quite soon in terms of, whoops, wrong button. What we've got today in terms of decode, and also what we're going to have coming very soon in encode. The best bit is here. All of this stuff will be included in your software at no additional charge, as and when it's available. I'm going to hand over to Nick, who's recently become a father for the first time.
Come back from paternity leave and get given this.
He promised to bring us a used diaper, but failed.
Yeah,
Bring back the memories.
Which button do I press?
So that's forward, and that backwards.
Right, okay. For those that know me, I'm a solutions architect based in the EMEA team, working with Christian and Mark and the other guys. A chartered history, which I won't go through, but worked at Evos, where Simon used to be many years ago. So this is actually quite close to my heart. And finally, Telestream has stepped up to the mark to be able to offer a better automation for Rush's ingest, moving away from multiple edit clients set up ad hoc, using Avid AMA or various other means to get content in the door. So what we've done is built a new monitor, not a watch folder, it's a monitor service that's built into Vantage that allows you to intelligently gather your content from either a network path where content's been dumped already, or even actually off the native acquisition format storage device, so P2 cards or whatever storage mediums that come in from the field. And essentially what it does, it's taken away the onus and the responsibility from the operator, running on a rules-based model and using Vantage to instigate an ingest workflow. Okay, so it's a hands-off operation at the moment. It will become a human interaction operation eventually. So it's a watch folder mentality, which essentially gobbles up content, and it can work in a number of different ways. Obviously, we can do hot folders now. Everybody can, very simple. So single card or single shot, single clip out, individual shot mode. What we can also do is stitch them all together. And then there's a tolerance for stitching of shots together, because you may not want to just stitch 24 hours of material in one big lump. So we've actually created a 30-minute or an 1800-second tolerance of content created within 30 minutes that then gets stitched. Anything outside of that doesn't get stitched, and it moves on to the next clip. So that's an intelligent way to group shots together. Rather than having thousands of source shots, you can group them into nice big lumps by half-an-hour blocks. The most intelligent mode is time alignment mode. I haven't really played with this yet myself, just because I haven't had time to hire a camera and go and shoot some stuff and make it work and play with it. But this would be great, as I see it, for multi-camera shoots, where you've got multiple cameras locked to common timecode, and you can create groups of time-aligned content, saving the onus from the edit staff or the edit assistants to go out and create those groups pre-edit time. Okay, so it's a long time coming. Format support is coming throughout the year. We obviously support a lot of formats as individual shots today, but that list is growing, and we've gone to the market and asked various different people around the world what are the common camera formats to use, or camera devices even. If there's anything that isn't on the list that's absolutely imperative for your company, please let us know and we can put it onto the roadmap. But these formats are becoming supported over the course of the remaining quarters of this year. Avid update. So, as many of you know, I'm ex-Avid. I spent there nearly 10 years of my life there for my sins. And now our Telestream have chosen me as the Avid expert, which is nice. We can continue to do our levels of Avid integration. So I don't think there was any huge announcements about Avid specific stuff this year. Obviously we're very Interplay centric, ISIS centric, and we're in the midst of qualifying Interplay 3.2. 3.1 was skipped, but I think there's now a patch that's going to come out so we can qualify 3.1. Avid created some holes for us to jump over. So Interplay workflows, frame chase editing ingest, multi-res, so we can create a proxy on the fly during ingest. So if you pair our Interplay capability with the camera ingest capability, a very tight story for fast turnarounds, huge content acquisition ratios, etc. So a good tight story there. In terms of the functionality in lesser models, obviously if you're an Interplay house, that's great. We do a lot of functions for you. But quite a few people just want us to ingest content for media composers only, non-Interplay houses. So we can do that now, and what we've recently done is added the AAF encoder, which is the Avid specific encoder, to write Avid native media, a licensed kit we have to buy from Avid. We've now included that in Transcode Pro, so part of a standard model, which used to have to be a cost option. So that's changed, that's recently used. Just a summary of what we do and how we do it. Yeah, most people know this already, but there's still the center playback, what we term as, it's an integration we did many years ago using Avid Transfer Engine. So that's often considered the fastest way out of an Avid back into Vantage for further processing. Post-Producer, for those that don't know it, it's a level of automation inside Vantage that produces mezzanine files to feed into further transcode profiles. All right, it's a compositor. It's not a render engine. Many people perceive it as a render engine. It isn't. It's a compositor to create multiple renditions of content. So where the sausage factory edit takes place, where you'd have to put things on a timeline, strip a title out, change a title, render it, export it. The first bit of feedback was actually making it humanly usable. So one of the key messages really is to automate it, but make it user-friendly and make it embed into workflows that people actually do day to day. So there's a couple of different ways of man-handling Post-Producer. You can do it by hand, writing XML, if you've got enough time and pressure and tolerance. Or you can actually integrate it into existing edit workflows. And I've been recently doing this for a client in the room, using an FCP7 export from Premiere. We can also do partially equivalent workflows with Avid. But what that does, it gives us a structure to take into Post-Producer. We can apply change points to the timeline, and then Post-Producer makes the multiple renditions. Essentially, this is a Premiere timeline, and what we can then do is edit this timeline and use it as a master template. So from here, we export a timeline that's been cut as your master, which would consider to be a normal process where you might have multiple renditions on the same timeline. We can create one cut, and then we can affect changes when it gets fed into the Post-Producer conform engine.
Just to make you aware, we have, I'll just skip through these so you can see them, because I'm coming towards the end and I'm aware we're running on time, so I did want to leave enough time for questions. But we have this stuff. If you come across closed captioning, come talk to us. We have something that might be suitable. And if it's subtitling, then of course MediaMate screen is where we go typically with that. Quick update on Flip Factory for those of you in the room who still run Flip Factories. You may or may not be aware of the fact that we have announced end of sale and indeed end of support. which you can see there is June this year. I haven't sold a Flip Factory in the 2 years that I've been with Telestream, but it's still available. But the end of support critically is the back end of next year. December next year, there will be no more support for Flip Factory. Quick update on Switch 1.6. I don't know how many people in this room have actually downloaded it and started to use it. Of course, it's DPP compliant as well, so if you wanted to check DPP assets within a Vantage environment, Switch uses the same code base.
Does everyone know what Switch is before we
point.
go into that? Switch is Telestream's player and inspector application. It's Mac and actually, most importantly now, PC. It's VLC on steroids. Allows you to play back professional media formats, frame accurately. You can see metadata, you can see time code, you can see subtitles. Say Mac and PC. There's a free version and a paid-for version. Paid-for version also lets you do a lot of DPP inspection, look at metadata. It lets you export data, so you can do YouTube submissions through it, for example, change metadata on iTunes submissions. It's free of all rights issues. If you run VLC, technically, in a professional environment, you're breaking one of the MPEG-LA rules and regulations. So it's fully licensed with its H.264 decoders. We sell them in multiple packs as well. We sell them in 10 packs if people want to go for larger installations, which we're starting to see people do now as they audit their systems. It's the PC version, as I say, is the latest thing out on that. For Vantage users, why it might be interesting is that it uses the same decode libraries that Vantage uses. So if Switch plays a file, there's a very, very good chance it will decode in Vantage. Legally, we're not allowed to leave the room until we've talked about the cloud. I think that's something we discovered. When we did this about a year ago, or 18 months ago, Vantage Cloud had just been released. And what I've done here is I've butchered someone else's presentation for a purpose slightly than what it was intended for, which was really to talk about where we are a year down the line. Because cloud is such a misused topic. This was an original, my boss wants to transcode in the cloud. This came from something that sadly is not a joke. We have a lot of customers whose senior management team would come down with I've just seen a Microsoft advert, everything should go to the cloud. How do we go to the cloud? And then the horrific cries of it probably won't work, sir. And so really what I did was I took this presentation. This is all of the good reasons why you want to go to the cloud. Isn't the cloud great? And for a lot of things, and for some people here, for some people's existing products and projects, cloud's no problem. We can take all those benefits, and we're very clear on where those use cases are, I hope now. But what I really wanted to do was show you what we've learned in practice from deploying Vantage in various cloud instances in that time, and just again give you some tools and some things to think about how you can understand how it might work or not work from you. One of the advantages in the cloud not working is that we have a product that you can install in a server in your building, and you can do an on-premise transcode. So the options are there, and the way we've been working now for a lot of people is still the right way. What have we learned in practice? Well, bottlenecks are all over the place in any workflow, in any system, and they've not always been where we thought they would be in the system. So what we're doing is looking at really breaking down every workflow to understand where bottlenecks and issues occur. How people use the cloud is still evolving. Transcode and platforms that we deliver to have never stopped evolving while we've been here. And the technology is evolving. The cloud service technology from the providers, your Amazons, your Azures, they're continually evolving. They're changing their prices regularly, they're changing their technologies, they're changing quite a few things as they change, and probably some of the guys try and work out how they can still make money from the business. Looking at where workflows exists today, it's not a one-size-fits-all, it never has been. So we've been looking for where use cases make sense. What we really discovered is that people have found a sort of a hybrid workflow that works for most people. There are very few people who can just make something work in the cloud alone. So we end up with trying to find and fit the use case that makes sense. So here's a good example where we have the delivery to the CDN for the mobile side of the business being done in the cloud. In this case, perhaps it's being done from storage that I'm keeping in there with my back catalogue on. So maybe this is a new provider that I'm bringing on board. Maybe 90% of my material when I onboard a new customer is the same, and therefore storing that in the cloud is a great way of doing it. Then what I'm doing is trickling up from my on-premise up to the cloud as I've got new material, and then that keeps me up to date. I've got a backup that's off-site and protected. Here's a couple of thoughts on what we're discovering as well. Really, the cloud's not one big lump. We're trying to find out where the bottlenecks are, and really these are the three places that transfers occur. This is by far the biggest bottleneck for most people, getting it up there in the first place, and then retrieving it potentially from within the different layers of storage within the cloud provider. What we are seeing is much better improvement through on the back end side for the processing itself. Those figures continue to increase. So really, having the media up there and available in the cloud is the key for most jobs to work efficiently. We're saying really plan and schedule your cloud uploads so that you know the media is going to be there in a timely way. Also, things like Aspera and Signiant are significant in some transfers to some cloud providers. And we connect directly with those from tools like Vantage. Use cases that have actually worked. Well, the first few things that we've seen out there that have been initially ported over, the first massive one we had was a disaster recovery. A customer had a massive problem on their premises. I think it was a fire or some sort of weird disaster. They moved the entire operation that they could to a cloud in a very short period of time. If you're already a Vantage user and you've got your workflows, you can recreate the systems that you've got in straight transcoding applications very quickly in Amazon's cloud. This is an example that's being run at the minute with a large news organisation who's looking at how they work internationally for crowdsourcing of local events. So in their case, they want to take mobile phones footage from people in region. They want to throw that into a store. They want to process it locally and keep as much of the non-useful material away from their core servers. New technology-wise, the changes that we're seeing right now that are affecting us, the first is the global availability of GPU. So up until recently, GPU was a beta service from Amazon or only worked in certain territories. GPU does matter for us for certain transcodes, for H.264 particularly, which is by far the most deployed workflow that we have. The core networking, so to the processing part of the engine, has had about a 10 times throughput improvement very recently, and there's more optimization going on there. So we're finding that some of the end-to-end transcode times are dropping and improving significantly, especially when we're doing the sort of multi-fan out encodes for over-the-top deliveries.
You want a distributed intelligent network, you want a complete audio toolkit, you want an integrated control layer. Here it gives you an example of a system for IP audio for television. First of all, now of course I'm going to use a Wheatstone example, that's just the way I am. But coming here, we have a control service, we have the mix engine. But now, what you want to have is you want to have off-the-shelf routers. You don't want to have anybody's custom routers or anything else. You want an off-the-shelf router. We recommend Cisco, but you can use anyone's. Coming over here, your switches, and now here you go to something called, here are your inputs and your outputs of your network. Your inputs, you want to have multiple inputs. For example, we have each blade is essentially a 16 by 16 router. In our business, we think about stage boxes for our studios. Think about a system that you could have 5 studios. You could have stage boxes in every studio, and every studio input is available everywhere in your entire facility simultaneously. Any input, no matter where it is in your building or remotely, is in this one network, and you pop it out analog AES however you want. Everything is in a blade. It's a 1RU 16 by 16 box. What are its features? Let's find out what they can do. It's a distributed network of I/O devices. In other words, anything, anywhere. Control both hardware, GPI, and software that be extended through your entire plant. In other words, those of you in engineering, picture yourself, you're sitting at home at night, you're actually trying to have dinner, and somebody calls you. They have a problem. Can you access the network to fix a problem from home? Can you change cross points on a router from home? Can you change logic? Can you change the entire setup in the studio in a heartbeat? Can you change gain levels on a signal? You can do all that if you have the correct IP system, which WheatNet is.
Hello, I'm Remco, sales engineer for Fidigo, and some of you know us, some of you don't, so I will give a quick explanation of what we do. The company, Fidigo, started in 2006 as a software company for radio broadcasters. We made visual radio happening, and now around the globe we're a market leader in visual radio. We sold 14 sets to Canada. Every development is in-house. I said we want to change things by creativity and in motivation. Mission: create high-end TV, easy, affordable, innovative, open software, like you said early on. Just we give our API and you can talk to it, and automation integration. And now all around the globe it's changing. We have to cut expenses. We have to make output the same quality as we used it for less money, with less people. So that's why we are changing. Last year we won the award during the IBC for the automation part. Oh, get some. It's our competitor. We're growing 30% in 2013, 60% last year, and we're aiming at 80% this year, and it looks good. Some of the new clients added in 2014. A quick overview of our system. This is Fidigo Live. It's a switching device, 4, 8 or 12 inputs, SD, HD mixed up together, up convert and down convert in 2 outputs. If you want to have more outputs, you add a machine extra, and you got 2 extra outputs. Multi-viewer is inside. This is the user interface, easily been done. And I will tell you more about the user interface, what we do with it, with the cloud-based things. These are all your sources for video players, 2 graphical layers, and your sources. You can change your settings of your sources, make them smaller, bigger, rearrange them, borders, etc. This is the video mixer. It's all touch screen, all with the panel. We got some audio. It's less than you have, but it's inside. We're improving it all the time. Here's the hardware panel. Doesn't look fancy, but it works. Multi-viewer. You can configure your multi-viewer as you want. So change the settings, store them in presets, and recall them on the fly. The setup is software-based, standard IT hardware. So if your video card will turn down, you can pop another one. We got integrated graphics and possibility to connect with other Fidigo solutions. It's an open API. You can talk to it if you want. You can program yourself to talk to the API. We got a single support point, future-proof, because the software is updated every year. I think 5-6 times. You get the upgrades. It's an integrated solution, open software. So if you want to have my API, you can get it, and you can program to my API if you want. Integrated graphics again. Easy to use, and single operation control. And we're changing that one also in multiple. Automation is a rundown order. I can connect in a day with, for instance, iNews. It's only 1 day integration. And I think our competitors do it 2 weeks, 3 weeks or longer. It's only 1 day for us to do. And we can connect to any device we want. Why studio automation? It's affordable. Because you can do it with less people. Only one guy is pressing the spacebar. Lower capex and opex. High efficiency, flexible, straightforward, and same content with less people. While he's running it one person, only pressing spacebar. It's the only thing he does. You can create it from your desktop. Here you see the rundown order. It's just like a rundown order. You can do your video playback, your audio levels. I can control external mixing desk if I want, or do it internally if I want. Statistics, again, software-based workflow, standard IT. It's running just on a laptop, this software package, or on a HP 200 or something. You can control your graphics internally, possibility to connect with other video solutions, fully automated. I can give you the fact sheets. And again, single support point, future-proof. Now the interesting part will go. Distributed UIs. I can log in with a device. Can be a laptop, can be a MacBook, can be a iPhone. And I can say for instance, I am now a audio operator, or I am the switching operator, or the tape operator. So I can scale up or down my OB truck, for instance. I got a small OB truck with multiple places to sit down, and I'm just a one-man band operating the show. Or I want to have a audio operator. He logs in and there's an audio operator. So we can scale up and down. This is released last IBC as a roadmap thing. It's now worked out. When you press the button on your laptop, it's pressed in the system. And we thought a little bit further, because when we go to a football stadium to do the broadcast, you have to rent a truck, an OB truck, drive it over there with lots of personnel. Expensive. What we just did was over IP. I can just have my unit, put it in the stadium, connect my cameras, so only the camera crew goes over there. I connect my audio, my IFBs, N-1, everything, over IP to a separate location. We're now testing it between Hilversum and Amsterdam, but I can set up in Rome and do this in London if I want. So just make one building in your office as the control room, and I can put up multiple machines in multiple stadiums or venues, whatever you want, and control all the machines over there. And I got a latency of 2 frames. And we're dropping it down, so we want to have 1 frame. So the difference between what's happening over there and what's seen on my screen is 1 frame. When I press the button, it's not adding 1 frame, it's instant. So I can have my control panel and control my set over there. Audio, video, playback, everything I want I can control.
Thanks everyone. So normally I'm used to a bigger stage, I'm much more animated, so I'll try and keep out of the line of sight. I'm going to make standards-based IT applicable and approachable for the media world, hopefully, media and broadcast world. So before we start, just start off by doing the obligatory Hitachi introduction, which is 100 years old, build nuclear power stations, medical scanning equipment, trains, planes, automobiles, everything, smart cities, pretty much involved in everything that there is in technology terms today. However, we've also been very heavily investing in the media world for about 4 or 5 years now, and we've built out a very strong global team. And just to sort of give you a bit of an insight into that, we've got dedicated media architects across Europe, across the Americas, across Asia, and we also have some very strong solution specialists that very much focus in on key offerings that we're bringing to market, and hopefully you might find interesting. Hitachi play in across the board really when it comes to the world of media and broadcast, and in unexpected spaces. We're pretty well known for storage and also well known pretty much for compute, but actually we do an awful lot, and we have a very specific methodology that we follow under the leadership of a guy by the name of Shane Archiquette, who really drives how we go about our development and engineering for the media and broadcast world. It's driven very much by the applications within your arena. It's driven by the requirements of the likes of Boxer. It's driven by the needs of the future needs and the future scale of your industry and some of the trends that are going on. What we tend to do is we tend to take an approach of looking at the key applications, building out first and foremost referenceable architectures, things that you can hang your hat on, things that drive performance, drive reliability, so that you can get a measured mark from your investments. Everything we deliver, we have the full and absolute intention of delivering for the lowest environmental and economical footprint, but with the highest performance gains in mind. It's also worth mentioning that we're pretty popular in other industries, and there will be a number of operational applications, etc., that will be potentially within your businesses, things like SAP, and that's absolutely bread and butter. You'll struggle to find a platform capable of delivering them more economically and more performantly than we can. If we look at what we're actually looking to bring to market, we're looking at all elements of the media workflow, the key applications involved, and we're aligning, as I say, our technology to make sure that we're bringing the very best out of your investments in applications and delivering the very best experience out to your teams in the field and in your operations. We sit across the post-production application set, and again taking that same methodology of building out reliable, proven architectures, things that scale, things that provide you with the performance requirements, the performance gains of your world moving forward, not the world that you're kind of shifting away from. And then obviously we've got archive, something which nobody particularly likes, but actually it's a necessary part. And we work with a number of key players in that space, but equally we have our own very smart technologies that we bring to bear in that space. So, the 4 propositions that for me I wanted to highlight to you all today. There we go. No. So the four propositions I want to highlight. So the first and foremost is Adobe Anywhere. Those that don't know, this is really an application that's been, it's a remote editing application that helps you remove the spread of platforms across your business, helps you to bring them into sort of a more of a VDI type deliverable experience. Hitachi are the first tier one standards-based vendor that actually has been certified by Adobe. That is packaged and ready to go today. HyperFS. So we've very recently just won a very large European national broadcaster, and they've opted to move with HyperFS. And the reason they've done that is because yes, it has wonderful scale, but in terms of what it brings out of their edit suites, particularly in terms of performance, is absolutely huge. HCP, the content platform, and a friend over here from Bunker talking about cloud strategies. For us, our content platform is absolutely pivotal to absolutely any broadcaster or media house's cloud strategy. I don't know how to pause this thing, so it just keeps going back and forth. The reason being is because actually it's agnostic to where you target your data. It doesn't really care. It's a very secure, compliant environment for you to be able to access and manage your data, your content, from across any infrastructure, whether it be your own, whether it be hybrid, or whether it also be in the cloud. And then lastly, Starbeam. And Starbeam is our Blu-ray solution. We've literally just poached this out of US federal government. Not literally, it's not theirs, it's ours. We sold it to them. They use it a lot. But actually, this is our direct replacement for LTO. And the cost footprint, the total cost of ownership for for Starbeam versus LTO, it will save you around about 50% of your current investment in LTO, at the very least. It's also 4 times faster. It also offers you non-sequential access to your content, and it's also highly redundant and highly resilient. 1 petabyte, 1 kilowatt, 1 rack, and that's just today. By the end of the year, the media sizes that we're going to be allowing to be available on that solution go up exponentially. So we're talking about terabyte level of data, terabyte disks, etc.
My name is Chris Luff from GB Labs. I'm the sales manager, look after the UK. We're the manufacturer. We manufacture the Space range of products. So you may have seen us at NAB, IBC, big blue stands, lots of spacemen, that sort of thing. Everything is designed and created and built in the UK. All of the software is done in-house, all the manufacturing is done in-house. We then send it out to our various other areas. We've got offices in Los Angeles, Sydney, Tokyo and Korea, so we can literally sort of follow the sun and give 24 hours support to people. The obligatory hero slide, these are a couple of people that we're dealing with at the moment globally. Okay, SAN, NAS and space. We are NAS boxes, but that's kind of where the similarity ends with that. I mean, I guess we're all familiar with SAN and NAS technologies. The main difference are, if you look at the reds, SAN's complex to support and use, client license and software, they're quite an expensive cost of ownership. NAS, traditionally fairly low performance, limited scalability, and a few other issues which we won't go into now. We've got round that. We've been working on our OS for about the last 7 years. So we've now got blistering performance, very easy to roll out, and it's very low cost of ownership over a 3 or 5 year period. So what makes us different? We started 15 years ago. We were doing one-off things for the military, a lot of broadcasters, anybody that wanted to do something slightly differently. 7 years ago we came up with the Space range of products. The reason we call it Space is every time we went to see people they just said, we need more space. So it's not a space thing, it's just space. Our front end is, we're now on Core 3, version 3.3. It's getting faster, there's more feature sets being added to it. As I mentioned, everything is designed in-house, so if anybody needs anything changed slightly, it can be done. We work over standard Ethernet protocol, 1 gig, 10 gig, 40 gig. We're also playing with 100 gig at the moment, but it'll be a while before we see anything coming from that. All our protocols, Samba, AFP, NFS and HTTP, they're the protocols, that's how we link onto our systems. Performance-wise, over 1 gig, we can saturate that, so we'll get 116 megabytes per second sustained. Over 10 gig, we get up to 850 megabytes per second sustained over AFP, wee bit lower than that under Samba. Over 40 gig, we'll get 1.5 gig per second over Windows, 3 gig per second if it's Linux to Linux. So pretty quick. Tier 1, we've got 4 tiers that we work with. We've got a super tier 1, which is our SSD-based systems. That's what we'll come to. We'll talk about that in a minute, about 4K. Tier 1, our basic tier 1, is our WIPs, our work in progress. That's the spinning disk setup. On the tier 1, we can go up to 2.3 petabytes as a single volume. Personally, I wouldn't recommend that. Most people go for up to about 500 terabytes, and then they'll put more onto their tier 2. Tier 2 parking, nearline, whatever you want to call it. And we can actually take that up to just over 6 petabytes. Toolset that's built into every single box. So this is right from our Wii box, our little mobile solution we have, right the way up to our all singing, all dancing 10 gig per second SSD. We've got automation built in as standard, so based on watch folder workflow. Replication built in as standard. Much as we'd love you to have space all the way through from your tier 1 right the way through to your archive, we're realistic, we know that doesn't happen. So we happily work with virtually every other manufacturer out there for any form of shared storage. File Manager, this is just a really nice way of moving things around your network. You know, we can work globally on this if you've got a wide enough network. It's got QuickTime Cleaner built in and various other bits and pieces built in. Right, who do we work with? It's kind of a who's who of you know, the sort of things you use out there. Everything is very, very straightforward to work with apart from our friends at Avid. The way we work with those, we've got... Where's my friend that works for Avid? It's around here somewhere. Anyway, simple bin logging is built in. What we brought out in version 3.3, and there's a few things coming out at IBC, which... Where's marketing? Can I talk about it? No, I can't. Okay. Basically, we'll be using ISIS as a controller. So you use our storage as a nice fast volume, and you've got a nicest box doing all the controlling and moving everything about. Super Tier 1, this is our SSD product. Everywhere we go at the moment it's 4K, that's this year's buzzword. So IBC, NAB, we're over in, not sure where we are, Broadcast Asia at the moment I think, and then we've got India coming up. Everyone wants to know about 4K. As soon as you say to them, okay, what do you mean by 4K? What sort of resolutions are you working at? That's when they say, oh, actually I'm not sure, I'll have to go back and check on that. The Super Tier 1, we have 3 boxes. We've got a 3 gig per second box, 6 gig per second box, and we've just developed a 10 gig per second box as a one-off for the gaming industry. Our Tier 1 is what we sell the majority of worldwide. 3U, 16 bay unit. You can get up to 128 terabytes in a single box. That can roll out, as I said, to the 2 petabytes. Tier 2 is our nearline. That can roll out to 6 petabytes, and that will work with anything. Ideally with other space boxes, but we're realistic. Tape Archive, the dullest thing in our range. We designed that for BBC Archives about 5 years ago, so everything is archived to our systems there. It's a very good system, it makes a very nice workflow. You've got TAR for archiving, LTFS for general production work. Okay, this is on the SSD side, so we've got various capacities going along to depending whatever you need, and you can roll that out to about 600 terabytes in total if you want to. Again, very few people would do that as a large scale out with SSD purely because of the cost implications, but there's a lot of workflows where we link SSD with spinning disk, and there's a lot of workflow that goes in the middle to move files around. Give you an idea on horsepower of this box. This is our 3 gig per second. This is our baby, sort of the entry level one. Actually, all of the graphics for the 2012 Olympics were done on this system with a company called Crystal CG. Don't know if you come across those guys. Probably the most pertinent ones to look at are 42225 is fairly industry standard. 195 streams from that box concurrently, so that's everybody hitting go at the same time. 44425, 82, 4K ProRes, which we're seeing an awful lot of now, 47 out of that box. But we can also work with full-blown DPX files as well in a collaborative way. If the 3 gig per second box isn't man enough, we've got the 6 gig per second, so you've got quite a big uplift in performance, but a fairly big uplift in price as well. Other SSD products we have the Mini, which is a box that big. I've generally got one sitting in the back of my car. We designed that for the guys that are working with high files actually on site. OB guys said they like the form factor of that, but they needed us to actually bolt it in. So we've got a 1U version of it as well. Our 4K Duo. So this, it's in the range because we were asked about it a lot. It's a box that you use on set. So we developed a box which has got similar functionality, more performance at a better price point. It's a market I know very, very well. So we've got an SSD based product. It's running at the same performance as the Minis that we've just looked at, but you've got dual LTO6 built in. So it's designed to do 2 copies of your rushes as you're working. So it's a belt and braces device. Connectivity, it's Ethernet all the way. We can run fibre over Ethernet if you need the longer runs going there. Capacities up to 128 terabytes in a single box as a single volume. Spinning disk, everything is RAID 6 to give you a little bit of belt and braces. SSD is RAID 5. Key features, ultra reliable, ultra high performance. Worth saying that all of our boxes, from the smallest to the largest, have all got the ability for the guys to link in from Boxer. So for Josh and his team, if there's a problem, they can link straight in as long as you give them permissions, and they can have a look at the log files on the boxes. If it needs escalating to us, it goes over to whichever time zone is working at the time, and they can interrogate the logs, have a look, and get you guys up and running as soon as possible. Hyperspace. This is the thing we're pushing quite heavily at the moment. A lot of people are saying to us that they love the performance of our SSD because it's ridiculous performance, but they don't like the cost. But they do like the cost of our spinning disk. So what they wanted was something kind of in the middle. So our standard spinning disk box, again, you can see ProRes 4K, you'll get 12 concurrent streams, nothing compared to SSD. What they needed was some way to actually improve the performance on that. What you can do, you can add another controller and an expansion, so you increase the amount of spindles you're running it over, and you get a wee bit more performance, but not enough for a lot of people. So we brought out Hyperspace. Hyperspace is a 1U SSD accelerator that sits on top of the box. When you're actually writing files to the system, you're writing it to both layers at the same time. Performance-wise, let's look at ProRes 4K again. You're up to 31 streams, so it gives it a nice boost. It's about a times factor of 4 on most codecs. Right, so you write in, it writes to both layers at the same time. The most common one we're selling at the moment is a 1.6 terabyte version of that. Now the SSDs are designed to be flushed up to 10 times per day, so in an 8-hour working day. So the 1.6 terabytes of the most commonly used data will be stored there. Okay, if you want to pull something back from it, but it's dropped down to the space layer, you have to pull it back up and then it goes off. So it just gives you a very, very quick way of getting information backwards and forwards from the system. Okay, tier 2, I'll fly through this one because I know we're talking more about 4K. This is our Nearline. So it's designed to sit there quietly. It comes as standard with up to 4 hot swap drives, dual OS SSD drives, so it's a real belt and braces device. If the drive fails, it automatically maps over to another device. So it can go up to 6 petabytes, and it will work with any other shared storage that you've got out there. So a lot of people that have got SAN systems or existing storage use these as their belt and braces device. Okay, the bridge. We're selling a lot of these at the moment. People have got existing SAN, so the good old XSAN, which is kind of dying as we speak. They've got existing investment in the storage side of it, but they don't want to get rid of it. So you throw away the server, you put a space bridge on top, links into existing storage. We can't guarantee any performance from it for obvious reasons, but it turns into a space volume, so you can use that as another Nearline. It's another way of doing it. Saves on investment. Everything is GUI based. Simple, powerful, intuitive. Here it is. Simple and aesthetically beautiful. Okay, so instead of just the editing, which a lot of people see us as just an editing platform, SAN, if you've got an existing SAN, we can Nearline to that with or without guaranteed performance. You can either put one of our Echoes, our tier 2s in as a Nearline, or you could put one of our tier 1 spaces in. So if you've got fallover, you've got guaranteed performance on the other end. ISIS, I love ISIS, bless them. Nearline and archive with project and workspace parking. Rendering for baseline or effects. Fiber and SAS storage recycled using the bridge. VFX, DPX rendering using our SSD, because again you can expand the SSD up to about 600 terabytes. Portable editing with our Mini and OB with the MIDI, which we've looked at earlier. Ultra high speed DPX film scanning again with SSD. Simple disc to disc tape archive with our Space LTO, which is our archive device. We can replicate from any space unit, removable media or other NAS, so we'll work very well with any of our competitors. We see ourselves as a central hub, almost like space Lego. So you can expand vertically, you can go widthways, whatever way you want to go with it. I'm just going to put that up. Mark put that in for me yesterday. We work really closely with the guys here at Boxer. They're our premier reseller, and they did a really cool rollout with Liverpool Football Club, and we were lucky enough to be chosen for their storage side on that. We went up there. I know nothing about football, wrong shaped ball for me. I couldn't understand why I didn't like the front end colour, which is blue, as you probably remember, which is Everton blue, which is their big competitor. So we actually custom made a couple of front ends for those, so they've got the Liverpool red and the logo on it. But Matt Quinn, bless him, who's one of their head guys up there, he tweeted this yesterday. Quite possibly the most pain-free storage expansion I've ever had to perform, and we didn't pay him for that, so that was a nice little soundbite for us and for the guys at Boxer. You'll be glad to hear that's it. So any questions you have, please fire away. Awesome, thank you very much. Thanks guys.
Okay, so for those of you who are maybe not aware, Adda, we're a UK-based company based in Cambridge. We manufacture KVM solutions. So while broadcast is one of the industries we focus on, our technology actually gets rolled out into almost every industry vertical. So on a weekly basis, we're talking with companies in utilities, oil and gas, security. We talk to people in traffic control systems. We're in a number of different industries, but what we've seen over the last 5 to 6 years has been a real increase in deployment of our type of technology into broadcast facilities in really a front-end style. KVM, for those of you who don't know, stands for keyboard, video and mouse, and originally the technology was designed to give people access to servers in a day that you would have had a server room full of devices that you might need to manage on an ad hoc basis. What we've seen a trend in the industry is to move towards front-end systems. So that is extension of graphics card and control signals for edit desks in broadcast studios, for desktop PCs in control rooms. Everything's coming to the very front, the actual user, rather than an admin or IT role. So our kind of position in the broadcast market at the moment is actually twofold. We work both in live broadcast environments, in areas where you need to flexibly be able to move between lots of different computers very quickly, and at the same time we're trying to give the high-end performance that's required in editing applications, visual effects kinds of environments. So our customers have a number of different challenges. The first one is just this ever-increasing amount of IT infrastructure that exists within broadcast environments. So the more computers that exist, we're trying to keep the numbers of people down, the ability to actually switch and control those computers from different locations. The second is the limited amount of redundancy options that people have, and as we rely on this technology, whether it's network technology or IT infrastructure, being able to actually rely on that technology, we would like to, so you can, manufacturers like Cisco, obviously we rely on them for every day, every morning. The first thing you do is interact with some sort of technology which is actually being driven by networking and IT. But can you rely on that at a critical moment, and how do you handle that? The heat and noise that's emitted by storage, by networking, by computer devices, where those go. So we have a saying at Adda, which is machines with machines and people with people. Our goal is constantly to remove all the storage devices, the PCs, from the working area. So when you walk into an MCR, there isn't the noise necessarily of the machines that are running there. When you walk into an edit suite, you don't hear the hum of fans. You're concentrated on the content. Accessibility. We talked about security on a number of the talks this afternoon. For us, one of the real problems that our customers have in every industry is the accessibility that users, and mostly their own staff, but external contractors, have to data, because it maybe exists on storage or it exists on a PC. So for us, we are all about that physical factor. How easy is it to get to that content? and then how much do you trust your own employees or the contractors that you're working with, who you do need to give access to. And there is two sides to this coin. You have give as much access as you can, but giving the right levels of access. And then workflow limitations. And one of the biggest challenges we see, certainly here in Soho, with the layout of buildings and the way that infrastructure is available to people, is how do I allocate resources to the right people? If an edit machine is unavailable, do I lose that space? Does that space become unusable? Or if the space is in use, does the resource, the computing resource, become available? So we're actually trying to separate these two things. We talk about a KVM switch. For those of you who are familiar, this is the most common thing that people are aware of that we produce. The ability for this screen, keyboard and mouse to connect to multiple computers wherever they might be. And typically that's instantaneous switching. The user gets to choose which computer they're in control of. Now, extension is probably the more common thing we're seeing in this market right now. And this is where I talk about getting the PC itself, the hardware, the HP Z840, which is putting out a huge amount of power, getting that away from the user area. So that's what we're looking at doing here. And we've progressed that slightly with the introduction of the KVM Matrix. So here what we have is there a laser here? We've got 3 computers and we've got 3 user positions. And the idea is that anything can interconnect. Now, that provides a huge amount of flexibility in live broadcast environments. If this monitor fails, the users from these desks can access those systems and keep us up and running. If this PC fails, the user can switch to a redundant system. So if you've got automation systems and you have a problem with your networking, being able to switch to a secondary machine and continue the broadcast becomes very important. And you might have multiple people who are having to interact. So the ability for user A and user B both to view the same PC at the same time. Maybe they're in different rooms. Maybe it's a presenter in a radio studio, and maybe it's an editor outside in a gallery. So the one thing that we've seen a development towards is IP technology taking up this central position. And this is something that ADA has particularly led over the last 4 or 5 years. There's a couple of simple reasons. One of the reasons is distance. So KVM extension, we have a challenge of physically getting the video. Users in edit environments are using high-powered graphics. We're using expensive graphics cards to deliver the right content. We then need to get it down the cable to the user in the edit studio. So this distance that you can extend has always been limited depending on the type of infrastructure you have. In the analog world, it was very easy. We could get large distances very easily. We just saw a slow degradation of quality. In the digital world, using that same CATEX infrastructure and the old techniques meant we could go for 50 meters, but at 51, you have completely black video. So you have this binary on or off application. In IP, we can pretty much do anything. We can route tens of users down a single fiber cable from building to building. It gives us a huge amount of flexibility in the design of the system. So the product we have is a product called AdaLink Infinity. It's been on the market for 5 or 6 years. We're at revision 4 at the moment, and we've introduced new technology both at the node ends and in the management area over the last couple of years. And at NAB we launched version 4 of our management system, which brought in a whole host of new security protocols and new technologies. So here we have that same switching infrastructure, but now instead of having a central piece of hardware, we're now talking about the Ciscos or the HPs providing this infrastructure, and it can look and feel a lot different. Although we're using the same core nodes and the same management system, you can have a completely different design from one building to the next. So here's just a quick example of an MCR. We've got our users sat at the desk. They can all access their various machines, but the machines are now located in a server room which is air conditioned. The server room's locked, so it's secure. Only the right people have access to those machines. Now, one of the things that we are able to offer is actually the limited access that the user has to these machines. So the first thing you can choose is who can access the system, what machines do they have access to, and then what level of access. And that can be as finite as which USB devices can they plug in that we'll use. So suddenly users can't plug in USB storage because you've limited that within the KVM solution. So no longer can they transfer content to their own private USB sticks or storage. I'll skip over some of the examples into maybe one we can go into a little bit more detail of. The Farm Group rolled out our Infinity system across a number of their buildings in Soho about 18 months ago. What we have here is an example of a number of edit suites. I think it's 38 in total, all with a single desk running either a dual head or a dual link screen, keyboard, mouse and peripherals, Wacom tablets. Now all of the machines for each building are then located in a central control room or a central server room. So the engineering department and support departments have access to that machine room. They can go in, they can carry out maintenance, but the user in the room is not disturbed. So while this maintenance takes place on the machines, no one has to come in and out of these buildings, or these rooms in this case. Now, we can also start to allocate the resources, the Avid systems they've got, the Autodesk systems, to the individual edit suite when it's needed. So the farm operate with a number of external contractors. In fact, one of their buildings is dedicated to external contractors. And so scheduling team are able to route the right machine to the right room when it's needed. So no longer do they have this tie between the allocation of the room and the allocation of the computing resource. They're flexibly moved in the right way. And so the ROI on actually rolling out the KVM is really quickly gained because they can hit maximum occupancy. They can always keep the rooms filled with the right people. In the event that there's some downtime, let's say a machine fails for any reason or a license expires, they can switch this user to a completely different machine instantly. And by instantly, we're talking about under half a second. And then just being able to limit the amount of configuration processes you have to go when you want to change that room. Just being able to reconfigure it on the fly, have presets where we can set up groups of rooms in a single button, being able to access those remotely. And we have some tools for actually accessing the dedicated hardware remotely. So we can have someone coming in to do support on, say, an Avid system from anywhere in the world. So there is the ability to bring people in over the WAN into the building as well. I'll skip over some of the finer technical details at this stage. Illumination is another application that we've had for the system that's gone in the last 6 months. They've actually used the tool to improve the way that they preview to clients and preview internally. So they have edit suites which the editors will be working within, and when they want to send something up for client review, they can send that to a master room. They can come in here, set the machine up, they get everything ready, they walk into the room, and then they use the KVM system to log back into the machine that they were originally controlling. So there's no physical tie between this computer and this room. Those are completely separated by the network. Smoke and mirrors here in Soho again, just rolled out the system last year. This is all driven or driving Autodesk Flame systems. In total we've got about 50 user stations. The key here was the ability to handle high frame rates over IP without loss. So one of the things that Ada does very differently from those in the market is we have a pixel perfect algorithm for delivering our content across the network. What that means in reality is the bandwidths that we're using to deliver video are very high in comparison to some of those we're used to with H.264 and similar codecs. But in terms of performance, they're significantly better. We're delivering pixel perfect, and some of the other industries that rely on that technology are areas like medical imaging. So people are using this technology to make medical diagnosis. Twickenham Film Studios is another UK-based project that we did. This was a dubbing theatre. So this is an application where we've got probably in around 20 screens or computers driving each dubbing theatre. We've got 3 in total. And again, they're located in different areas, so they can all be linked on a fibre ring. They're all being able to talk to each other. So any desk location can talk to any PC in the back end. I know we're short for time, so I'll cut it short for any questions. Hopefully that gives you an oversight of Ada and KVM technology, and if you've got any questions, we'll happily answer them now, or Mark and the team later on.
I want to say thank you to our guests. I think it's been, hopefully we've given you a flavour of a few things. We don't have a lot of time to go through in everyone's products to the nth degree. We hope here just to give you a flavour so that you can pick the things out that maybe interest and excite you and grab the people directly either now or via your Boxer account manager, or any of us in fact here. We've had nuclear bunkers, I still love that. And the cloud and everything in between. So I'd like to say thank you to all of our suppliers for coming over and giving up their time, and thank you to all of everybody else here for coming out today. I know your time is valuable, so we appreciate that you spent some with us. I'd like to say this is now our 25th birthday for Boxer this year. We can't believe it's been 25 years. I can't believe I've been there 21 years. So we just want to take any opportunity we've got this year to say thank you to all of our customers, old and new, for your patronage during that time. Beers are available. Which is great. We're in no hurry to get out. So please spend some time with the guys at the back, ask your questions, and thanks again for coming out. Appreciate it.